I'm coming in loud and clear. Might hear me on the radio. Breaker, breaker, 19. Anybody got their ears on?
Hey guys, it's Eric here at Farpoint, and tonight I want to make a video that I'm calling A Simple Guide to CB Radio. Alright, now let's get on to CB radio, because that's what you watched this video for. So CB radio is, again, a 4-watt AM or 12-watt sideband, and what that means is how much power it can push downrange, how far your voice can be heard. And to do that, you're looking at getting a radio like this and installing it in your car, and you would also need to get an antenna. And funny enough, it's not how much power the radio puts out, because they all put out the same amount of power. It's the antenna that makes more difference than anything else. A 9-foot whip like this one right here on the back of my truck is going to get out spectacularly, where a 3-foot whip might get out pretty darn good as long as it's mounted in a good spot like this. Now, one of these smaller antennas like the President New Virginia, which I have on this car here, well, it's only going to get out maybe 2 miles. And when I say get out, that means it's range. But you have options. If you just want to know what's going on in a traffic situation, do you need to have range longer than 2 miles? No, not really, which is why I chose to put that smaller antenna on my Mirage. Now, if I wanted a 3-foot antenna or a 4-foot antenna and put it on the top of my car, well, I'm going to have a pretty cool setup. In fact, I can do some of what these guys are doing. And I can probably talk that skip where the signal bounces off the atmosphere, comes down in a totally different state. And I could do that for fun sitting in my car. And with a 9-foot antenna, well, you can talk to the world locally or far away. It's really up to you. It's really cool how that works as long as skip is working that day. So that's what you're getting into. To get a used CB radio, you're looking at between $5 and $50. $5 radio is going to be a real basic radio. It might even be a 23-channel radio like this one. For $20, you're probably going to end up with something like this. This is a Radio Shack 40-channel AM. It has all the features you would ever want. And then for $50, you're looking at getting a used sideband radio, and that's this. And now, not to confuse you more, but sideband is like taking the 40 channels and splitting them in half. But by doing so, by squeezing the signal down, the FCC has allowed more power to be pushed into it, and so you're getting longer ranges. That's the plus side. The downside of that is that only other radios that are sideband capable radios will be able to hear your transmission properly. You'll hear a garbled, muffled voice if you only have an AM radio. The vast majority of cars are going to have AM only radios in them, for good reason. The universal channel for truckers here in the United States is channel 19. Once upon a time, channel 9 was monitored by the police and fire and rescue, because that's if you had an accident or something like that, you could call out. But those days are pretty much over here in the United States, so you probably just want to stick with channel 19 if you're going to use this for highway use or back road use. But it's okay to flip around. In my area, channel 14 is actually the popular station. Locals talk on it both on base stations and in their car, and so it's kind of the meeting channel. We find out what's going on in the area on channel 14. So that's what's going on with an in-car install. You'll need an antenna. And those antennas can range anywhere from $22 all the way up to nearly $100. Make sure the antenna you get either comes with the coax cable, that's the wire that goes between the antenna or the radio, or that you set aside a couple extra bucks to get about an 18-foot run. Usually works in most modern cars. Now, installing it, I'll cover in another video, but you will have to probably drill at least one hole. Sometimes you get lucky and there's a drain plug in your car somewhere or a factory body plug that you can kind of pry out of the way and slip that wire through. But a lot of times you will have to drill one small hole in your car. If you put it underneath the carpet, no one's ever going to know, and it's never going to matter. Now, on base stations, which is what you see here, now there are different types of base stations. There are base stations like this one here. This is a unit in Washington. That's a conventional old school base station. It plugs directly into the wall, and then it powers up and you are ready to go. You hook up your base antenna to it, and you're talking locally and to the world. Or you could do what I have here, and I have taken a mobile radio and I've added one extra component to it. I have my mobile radio, and then I have these, which are power stations. They're power. It converts 120 volts to 12 volts because these run off of 12 volt batteries, car batteries, right? Now you can pick up one like this Radio Shack 3 amp. Well, that cost me about $7 on eBay. A lot of times now for a 3 amp, which is 3 to 7 is what you're going to want to look for basic setup like any of these radios here. You're looking at between $20 and say $35. If you want to get something larger like this one, which is a 20 amp, now you're looking a little bit more, maybe $60 to $70. So just something to keep in mind when you go out looking for it. You can also, if you want to do an off-grid type setup, use a car battery. You can take a car battery, bring it inside, and put it on a trickle charger, and then when you want to use it, you're just using it off of the old car battery. And when you're done using it, that little trickle charger will bring it back up to a full charge. Just be aware, if you're going to use an automotive battery inside your house, they do off-gas, and that's not really good for you. It also can be explosive, so I don't recommend having the battery in the house, but you can have it outside with a solar panel charging and run it up to these radios, which is actually how all these radios are running right now. They're running off of solar outside. So that's how base stations work, but with base stations, you do have additional cost. So we've already talked about the cost of the radio. In this case, this was a brand new, well, it was refurbished. It was $90 when I bought it. Now they go for about $110. And then the power supply was, like I said, I think I paid $7 for it, something like that. So let's call it $100. The cabling, and you need this cabling, RG8 or RG213. There's names for cabling. I'll show you in a different video how all that works. But you'll need a cable that goes from the radio to the antenna. And antenna choices aren't the same. You can't just use a car antenna and stick it on your roof and have it work, because the car's roof is actually part of the antenna. It's made out of metal, where unless you're in a mobile home with a tin roof or have a steel roof, you're not going to get that same effect. So you can actually damage your radio by trying to use a car radio or car antenna as a base setup. But if you have a metal building like this one here has a steel roof, or my old mobile home had a tin roof, well then go ahead and use that if that's what you have, and it'll work just great. But let's say you put 50 feet of cabling up, you're going to want a base station antenna. I always bring this particular antenna up because it's simply the cheapest, best, easiest to set up antenna. It's the Antron or SolarCon A99. Here's a picture of it here. And that antenna will get you talking to the whole wide world and will last you many, many years. Mine on the roof is 25 years old now and still working fine. The last thing you're going to want to do to get on the air with a base station is ground it. The antenna needs to have a ground rod pounded into the ground and a copper wire or aluminum down into it to ground it out, because lightning is attracted to these things. I've been blessed never to have a lightning strike here. I've had close calls, but never had one hit, but it is not something you want to experience. And another way to get a better signal, of course, is to ground the radio as well. And you can do that by grounding it right through the ground outlet on your outlet. Lastly, you need to tune the system. And you're going to think, oh, no, I don't know how to do that. Well, it's super easy. You're going to need something called an SWR meter, and I don't have one in here, but here's a picture of one right here. These are also available on the internet on eBay used. They usually cost between $7 and $15. And they will tell you what your signal reflected ratio is, SWR, right? Oh boy, what are we talking about? You're losing me. Don't worry about it, my friends. It's not that hard. You hook it in line with your radio, and when you talk, when you push to talk and you say hello, right? When you do that, that little meter is going to move up, and you're going to calibrate it and see how much the signal is reflected back. We don't want any of this 4 watts coming back down into the radio. So the idea here is to tune the antenna, and it's just a matter of turning a screw and then lifting and lowering the antenna slightly. I mean, one turn at a time, a little bit up or a little bit down, to get the lowest reflected ratio. That way all 4 watts go out the antenna, you get the best range possible, and you talk all night long without damaging your radio. So that is the simple guide to CB radio. It's a reason why you should get it. It's how simple it can be to get into it, and it's how cost effective it is, especially compared to ham radio or a lot of other hobbies, quite frankly. Now in future videos, I will definitely go more in depth, because it's been many years since I covered these topics, and I think I covered them on VHS instead of 4K. But I'll go into how to tune a mobile CB radio, how to set up a mobile CB radio, how to install a mobile CB, how to ground your system for if you want to do a base station, how to set up a base station antenna, and more. So stick around here on Farpoint the next few months as we go through the winter. Will be fun. We'll have all kinds of stuff. And I'll even tell you where you can score radios like this, which cost $2, Or this, which costs $22. Or this, which costs, $90 new or refurbished. I'll see you next time, my friends. Take care.